What's going on, guys? And welcome back to another episode of Rapflix Radio. I'm your host, Kyle Rapp, as always, and today's episode is about pre-performance routines. And I am a little biased because this is one of my main focuses when it comes to sort of evidence-based research and what part of my thesis was supposed to cover until I said, screw that, and chose a project instead. But I have found pre-performance routines to be such an important part of the way I show up, on here, through my writing, things of that sort. A morning routine is a pre-performance routine. Let that sink in a bit. Because you've heard the value of morning routines from me, from everyone else. Pre-performance routine is really a micro routine to your performance for what you're going to do. And I'm going to talk about sort of the macro pre-performance routine and the micro pre-performance routine. And I could get really super in depth because I have, and I find it very interesting. But I know sort of where you're coming from, and I want to start from the top down and go from there. Because if pre-performance routines are new to you, if you sort of have one, I want to explain a lot of the 50,000 foot view of pre-performance routines before we get into the nitty-gritty of it all, which I might cover in a blog post or in another episode. But the goal of this episode for you is to explain the purpose of pre-performance routines, why people struggle with performance, and how this is going to help you, and actual steps to creating your own. It's going to be personalized. It's going to be highly individualized. Mine before this was singing, I would say 8 to 10 songs, country songs specifically, to get in the right frame of mind, to modulate my voice, to smile and to have fun and bring the positive energy to this episode and to the batch recording that I'm doing today. But I digress. So, before this, if you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel or the podcast, please do so. I would not want you to miss an episode. This episode in this podcast, really, right now, is being brought to you by the Flex Philosophy course. RapFlex, the Flex stands for Focus, Learning, Enthusiasm, and Execution. And I created that very early on within the company. And I said, wow, if those are so important to my mission, to who I'm serving, why would I not teach those specific principles and those specific values to everyone? And I decided to do it for free. So it is a 4-part video series in a course, so you feel this exclusivity, and it's very cool. It's set up well. I have book recommendations for you, actual exercises for you to do to take home and do and implement in your life. And it's definitely, if this were given to me a year or 2, 3 years ago, home run. And I know I'm biased, but if you have not checked it out, please go check it out. It is in the show notes or on rapflex.com. You can find it as well. But easiest way is to just scroll up and click on the show notes. So without further ado, let's get into what pre-performance routines are. And this is an evidence-based definition. The preparation phase prior to skill execution is crucial in determining whether the performer achieves a peak performance state. And that is what I am here for. I'm here to get you into a peak performance state so you can perform at your best consistently. And that is what a pre-performance routine will allow you to do. It is basically taking these big dials and these little dials and just dialing everything in to the point where you're ready. You're in a confident space. Your focus is on the right things that need to be focused on. And really, these pre-performance routines allow you to do 4 specific things, but a lot more. But I'll cover those either later in another episode or later on in this episode. But the 4 main are self-regulate these arousal levels, which is a fancy term for saying your excitement level or your sort of anxiety level. We all have sort of, if you want to measure it 1 to 10, we all have a certain number that we enjoy being at. Some of us like being hyped up and, banging helmets together and things like that. And some of us like stewing in the corner and like having some silence and going out very sort of stoic like and confident. And that's knowing you and having self-awareness and knowing yourself, but it's basically self-regulating that ideal arousal level for you. Second, it really crystallizes your expectations and your intention for that performance. It allows you to say, okay, like this is what my intention is, this is what my expectation is for myself, for my process, for my performance, and let's go do it, basically. And that kind of stems into the third point, which is confidence. We all need confidence. Like courage and confidence are very different. When I talk about confidence, it's we've done this performance before. We've either gone on a golf course before, we've either recorded a podcast episode before, we've gone on a podcast, and confidence is showing up saying, I'm going to do this one just a little better than the last one, just a little better. How can I improve my process just a little better? And that is confidence, and that's how you build confidence. And lastly, the intentional focus. And that goes back to intention, but really the focus is on like, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm going to give all of my heart and soul and mind and brain into for the next however long that performance is. And that's going to look different for all of us, depending on what we're doing. But I believe a pre-performance routine is important for anyone who wants to reach that peak performance state and to either change lives or to change your own life. If you're an athlete and you perform for fans, so you want to give them a show, you want to impress upon them, you want to give basically what they expected from you as an elite performer. So what most people struggle with when it comes to pre-performance routines, or actually, let me back up, what people struggle with performance in general. It is being present, or the lack of being present, lack of intention, and anxiety. And the reason most people aren't present is our lives outside of our performance loom large. And we have worries, we have other dreams, we have other desires, we have other things pulling at us, we have other identities. And there's a train behind me right now that is detracting from this, and that's part of this. It's staying focused. And we have to remember that what a pre-performance routine really does is to say, like, this is my identity right now, this is my intention right now, and I'm going to focus on this as much as possible. And a lot of people go through their performance, whether they are an athlete, whether they are a coach, an entrepreneur, and they have all these other swirling thoughts and ideas, and that's why they don't show up presently in every situation that they are. That's why pre-performance routine is so important. Second is just the lack of intention and not thinking about, okay, what within this performance, what is my goal, basically. And it can be too focused on the result and not their intention for their performance, like I have written down. Because as far as goals, we have three main ones. We have the result, we have performance, and then we have process. And not that one, quote unquote, is better than the other. I think we need to take all three into account. But when we talk about result, it's wanting to win. It is wanting to crush a podcast episode. But with the process, it's like, am I saying ums and uhs? Am I taking enough breaks? Things of that sort to give. And then, an athlete, it would be, what are my greens in regulation? How is my pace through my swing, for a golf example? And sometimes when we go into a performance with the wrong intention, or we're not showing up to say, how can I contribute value to someone else, or how can I show up best for my team, that intention is going to allow us to perform better because it's no longer just about us, and that typically will drive down sort of these what if questions, and that is the third, and it's our anxiety level of like, what are people going to think, or what if I screw this shot up, or what if I have a terrible performance. Well, if you're focused on your process instead of the result, that's going to allow you to again focus on the process and the minute things that you're doing and you actually enjoy doing, and the result really takes care of itself. So again, that pre-performance routine is going to allow you to dial in the process intention of that performance, and that's what I want to get you to. So the goal of pre-performance routines is to intentionally stepping into your performance persona. Now, I talk about alter egos with my clients, and this is kind of the next step of creating pre-performance routine. But if you don't have pre-performance routine yet, that's the first step. And the difference between a macro and a micro pre-performance routine is the macro, let's say through the entire golf competition or the entire basketball game, the entire football game. We have this pre-performance routine right before it, whether it is half hour, an hour, that we do these certain things to get us ready for the overall performance. From a micro perspective, this is very important in golf, but it's very important with anything. Free throw, the next sort of play, in football, things of that sort, right before an actual critical play or a swing, a shot in general, we have these micro pre-performance routines, and they're very quick. They don't have to take up a lot of time. But as an example, for me, when I'm golfing, I kind of waggle, step back, visualize the ball going where I want to, address the ball, think the term curry, because he has such a fluid motion when he shoots, and that's what I want my golf swing to be. It's very easy, it's very confident, and those are all the things I want to sort of incorporate within my next shot. And then I take that shot, and that may only be 12 to 15 seconds, but it's very important to do that before every single shot. And within a golf context, there are, driver pre-performance micro routines, there are fairway, chipping, approach shot, putting. They all look very kind of different, especially within professional golf, as if you kind of study them and things of that sort. But I think what I'm getting here is that both the macro and the micro are very important, and the micro does not have to take long at all. But it's very important to tell your brain, because it's constantly fighting off all of these distractions, to say, hey, this 12 to 15 seconds, I'm going to give you a list of pre-commands, basically, and then we're going to go do this action that I need you to do very consistently. That's what allows you to be consistent and to trust your instincts, and to have, like, the next level is your instincts trusting you. And this is when we get into the zone and flow state and things of that sort. But it really starts here. It starts with that focus and that consistency and doing these things, and then eventually you'll do these micro things without really even thinking about it, and you might already be doing that. But I talk about the pre-performance routine basically from a macro standpoint, because I think we are all going to have, depending on our performances and our sport and things of that sort, they're all going to look vastly different. But I can talk about sort of the macro pre-performance routine, because it can be like more relatable to a more broader audience, if you were. So my pre-performance routine right before I get on here to record is putting this necklace on and this is part of my alter ego, as I've talked about. I can't remember which episode specifically. Sorry, taking a drink here. Put that on, kind of embody what the identity and the values of T'Challa, and showing up with confidence in this sort of swagger, as it were. And then when I record is different than when I write or things of that sort. But when I record, I'll sit down, I'll start with a few Luke Combs songs, and then transition to Morgan Wallen. There's a song that he sings very quickly, and if I'm up to that pace, then I know I know I'm good from that perspective. And then you either switch to like Tim McGraw or Garth Brooks, and then sort of end with Brett Young and the acoustic versions of those songs, so I know that I sound good. And then I basically sit down. I have my coffee and my water next to me, and I smile and say, what is my intention with this particular episode? And what is my intention with this performance in general? It is to allow you to learn, to better yourself, and it's for me to become the next step, get a little better to becoming a world-class speaker and a world-class educator. Trust me, I have a long way to go. I have a long way to go to sort of dialing in my pre-performance routine. I haven't been doing this that long, but I'm starting with that intention, with that end goal in mind. Athlete examples, Tiger Woods has his micro pre-performance routine, and back in the day in the 2000s, you could see how deliberate and just consistent that pre-performance routine really was. And if you're an athlete, you probably have these routines, or a lot of people consider them rituals right before a game. And there are some downsides when it comes to rituals, because you can depend on them too much, and then say you forget your favorite socks and you're on the bus, and you're doing yourself more of a disservice and being like more anxious because you don't have that thing you're relying so much upon. Whereas a routine, you can sort of mold it to kind of the intention of that routine. And that's just what I've seen in the research, and I could potentially see with athletes and coaches as well. But understand, we all have these ways of getting ready for our performance. And I'm going to share with you from the research some of the themes and patterns that I have seen within elite performance. So, 5 steps to creating your pre-performance routine. First, it's assessing the time necessary and factors out of your control. Like, how much time do you have when you show up? And a coach is going to look a lot different than an athlete. So how much time do you have to execute this pre-performance routine? I have talked a lot about like managing focus over managing time, but unfortunately, from an athlete perspective, or sometimes even a coach perspective, if you have kids, things of that sort, there are going to be, you don't have this unlimited amount of time to do this, and there are going to be factors outside of your control. So you need to assess that before you really start to implement anything, because if you start to implement before everything and then it spills over, then that's just going to create unnecessary chaos if you had anticipated and prepared for the time necessary. 2, have space for alone time. And again, individualize. We all have ways of getting up for things. But I would say, unless you're an extreme extrovert, having just a little space, even, for alone time to sit in silence, to sit with your intentions for that performance, and then, go to your teammates or your other coaches or things like that. But I highly recommend having some space for alone time. And this is coming from, I would say, 52% extrovert out of 100%, because it's a spectrum. Third, and one of the most important things, is to incorporate imagery or visualization. And I will cover this specific topic and like an entire podcast episode because I find it so fascinating. But to a mental rep in your mind to say, and this is where you can kind of couple the second one and the third one, by the way, is to have this alone time and to incorporate, closing your eyes and say, if I could wave a magic wand and this could go any way I wanted it to, what would this look like in my mind? And you start to visualize what your shot's going to look like, how you show up on camera, and that's going to allow you, and the research backs this up, to show that you have a better chance of having a great performance. Fourth is these growth mindset factors, and this goes back to what I was talking about with the process goals. It's having this, I had a good performance last time, or I had a crappy performance last time, but there's nothing I can do about that. What can I do during this performance to get just a little better than the last time I performed? And if that enters your mind with the intention, that's going to allow you to get better and not basically to beat yourself up over the result, because honestly, most of the time, we can't control the result, but we can control how we show up, how we perform, and how we approach that performance. And then fifth, this is just a caveat, it's highly individualized, and your pre-performance routine will evolve when you start to try new things. Like when I first started recording, I didn't do this singing, but I found that it boosted my energy levels, and it got my voice to sound a little better. And try new things, try different things, try switching them around, and that's when you find that something that you do want to rely upon it, but not rely upon it so much that if you go without it, you will have sort of a catastrophe performance, as it were. So the 201 is what I kind of explained already. So I got ahead of myself, and I apologize. But just to reiterate, the macro is before that entire performance, whether it is an hour-long game, a 3-hour-long golf competition, or like my batch recording for 2 to 3 hours. And then the micro is before each shot, each play, etc. So to wrap up, I want you to create your own pre-performance routine. And within the Flex Philosophy course, I have a PDF for you to fill out, and that is part of focus. Had to remember. But this is important. It's been huge for me as someone who wants to get just a little better and a little better and compound that over time. And if you're listening to this, you probably relate to that. And this has been one of the biggest things for me, is to create a pre-performance routine that I enjoy and I can now show up better and better. And I'm never going to be perfect when it comes to this, but I set the intention, I do my pre-performance routine, and I show up with confidence and with the right intention to show up on here and to teach and to inspire and to hopefully entertain. So hope you enjoyed this episode. Please let me know if you have any questions about pre-performance routines specifically or anything in general. Kyle@rapflex.com. I would love to hear from you. And until next time, guys, have a great day.